Hi there, folks. I'm looking out the window, and since yesterday, we've had more sun. So, according to the weather, it looks like we're getting our sun back. So, I'm very excited about that. I want to go on some bike rides and take some trips. And it's a lot more fun to do that when it's not raining all the time and when the wind is not blowing so hard. Today, I was posting a lot on Globe Hackers Facebook page and Minds on denial and things like that because I'm fascinated with it. Um, for many years now, we're not getting any better at critical thinking, it seems like. And with the people in charge of the world today, I think almost everybody is in denial, and that includes me. I'm absolutely uh, not a victim, but I'm subject to the same cognitive biases and prejudices and dogmatic thinking as anybody else. I mean, mine is unique to me and my experience in learning, but it's still, psychologically, in terms of our animal behavior as human animals embedded in our cultures, it's the same as everybody else. So I recognize that I'm no different from, a person who wants to talk about, you know, critiques of capitalism or Karl Marx or a MAGA person or, you know, any radical ideologue in the world. They're human beings just like me. And they fall prey to these things that I'm going to talk about today. And so do I. I'm no different. I'm not special. And I'm just bringing this up. It's kind of 101, I think, for a lot of people who are curious about our predicament. And as you know, what I mean by that is the polycrisis, overshoot, and civilizational collapse. And there are so many good reasons from physics, uh, you know, and the study of nature, biology, and other things that confirm the fact that nothing lasts forever, especially the kind of civilization that we currently find ourselves in. Of course, I've been really lucky. Most of us have been to be born in a period where we could use, as Nate Hagens and other people have said, energy slaves all the time, in the form of transportable, liquid, dense energy, also known as oil and gas and coal. So these things are amazing and have allowed us to have modern industrial, high tech civilization over the last couple hundred years. And it's been great for a lot of people, and for some people, it hasn't been so good, obviously, because you can just read history from, let's say the 18th century till now, and you'll see it wasn't all just unicorns and roses and picnics and frolicking and laughter. It's been hard for a lot of people in the world, and it's hard for people in the world now. It's relatively easier for me, and I'm thankful for that. But for a lot of people, these days aren't so good, which is sad, unfortunately. But I wanted to explore reality denial and just go through a few big reasons for it. So we have blinders on, and even when there's clear evidence and data about something, we tend to ignore it because it's uncomfortable for us to look at it. And there are many reasons why it's uncomfortable. But of course, we can talk about cognitive dissonance in a minute. But we're happy and comfortable with our beliefs and to entertain information that's contrary to our beliefs is uncomfortable. So we don't want to learn about it. So we avoid the evidence. We don't want to discuss it, talk about it. For many people who are more curious about things, it doesn't bother them if they don't understand something. They're willing to learn about it, or if something makes them uncomfortable, they're willing to reflect on their thinking and emotions and say, why is this so uncomfortable? I wonder. Um, a kid that didn't like broccoli when they were 5, now they eat broccoli. So things can change over time. And we all suffer from a great deal of exposure to information and filter bubbles, silos, clicks. For example, on Reddit, every Reddit subreddit has its own culture and, way of talking about things, vocabulary, abbreviations, uh, you know, mannerisms, rules of the road, rules to be a member of the subreddit and whatever, just like on Facebook groups. And you can go on a given subreddit about one given topic and post something that's totally reasonable and rational and true. And there's plenty of reasons to believe it's true and evidence and so on. And in one group, you'll be voted up and your post will be seen. And in another group, you'll be voted down because each culture is different and some just don't want to hear what you have to say the way you want to say it. Usually when I comment on videos of people that I really respect and follow and care about, they're more than one sentence. Nobody reads it because it's too long. That's another thing about these algorithms is that they know everything about our online behavior. So what we're going to look at, how long we're going to scroll, and what we're curious about, not curious about. And they tend to feed us what they think we want to see and hear because the name of the game is keeping us on site looking at their stuff and buying whatever anybody's selling. And that's just life. So we all get sucked into these info bubbles. On my Facebook, nobody pays attention to it. I have a few friends who do. But I'm posting stuff about the maximum power principle or whatever, and different things, books and so on. And maybe I write 2 or 3 paragraphs on something, and nobody's interested in that. They just want to, baby boomers like me remember Facebook when it was just pics of birthday parties and plates of food we were eating and, hotels we were staying in and fun stuff we were doing with friends, kind of like Instagram, before everything got co-opted into a bigger business model by the corporations that run these platforms. So Meta owns WhatsApp and Instagram and Facebook. And so there's a tendency there to be a salesperson. And if people don't know what you're selling, they can't even relate to you. So you have to find a niche, burrow in, and target that market. And then you get clicks and likes and you get people paying attention to you. And so I don't think my videos here are going to be paid attention to unless I organize things in that way, if that's what I want to do. So that's, the social media thing. And then we are all motivated to conform to beliefs. So depending on where you were born, what culture, community you grew up with, you may be conforming to certain religious dogmas and beliefs that you were taught, whether it's Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Jain, Baptist, Anabaptist, Catholic, whatever it is, Orthodox, Christian. Maybe you're a secularist, a secular humanist. You were brought up in a family that was more interested in science and secularism, and you never had the bug. Like some people, I really think metaphorically, I don't know if it's true or not, but they have like a religious gene, something in their brain, structures that they inherited that make them more, able to listen to God talk to them. And there's been research done on this, so it's not that far fetched, but I'm in the middle. I have it a little bit, but I don't have it. So I can't really go all in on the I'm a mystic thing. And I talk to God every day and I pray and all that. I can't be totally secular either because although I do veer towards secular humanism and science, I also know that we don't know that much. And we get things wrong all the time for reasons I'm going to discuss here. And therefore, I'm not that smart. We need to be humble even about our mathematics and technology and, scientific theories and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. So it's kind of like, the Pascal's wager type thing. I'm not sure, but then I would use other forms of thinking, Bayesian reasoning or whatever, to update my priors and try to understand better what I'm thinking. So we all conform to narratives, basically. So a lot of people will scapegoat or blame everything on a particular group, like some people really don't like Muslim people for various reasons. And maybe they're, let's say, good reasons, like one might think. I don't in particular think so, but intellectual influencer like Sam Harris might have good reasons to think that Islamic people or Muslims are more prone to terrorism or whatever. I don't think so because, according to my understanding of history, nobody's immune to it. Uh, I just don't see it that way at all. And I've lived in Muslim countries and, well, not lived in, but visited often enough and know enough Muslim people to know that that's not true. Same thing with some of these cultural debates about LGBTQA plus and trans gender versus sex and all that. At first you might think, well, it makes total sense what some conservative narrative on the issue of trans might be. And then the more you look into the science of it, the biology of it, and all that kind of thing, the neurology of it, you kind of change. Or I can anyway. I can take that on board and say, well, gee, I used to kind of think it was self-evident or logical or it made sense to believe this, and now I've changed, just because I've confronted my initial, confirmation to a certain narrative and challenged it myself and looked into it and then figured out I was wrong. For example, I was deeply involved with Trump derangement syndrome in 2015-16. And I got caught up in the Russiagate thing. And I later learned from research done by many good journalists and other people, academics and technologists and data people, that mostly that was a hoax. I mean, it's not like everybody doesn't influence everybody. We all have our dark ops going on. Every country does, especially the United States of America. They wrote the book on it, okay? So no one's immune to that. But the degree to which the bots and all that were influencing everything was very low compared to other things within our culture that we do naturally, according to all these biases that influence our behavior. So I shed the Russiagate thing. That doesn't make me a Trumpist or a MAGA guy. It just means that little thing was mostly bullshit. So I let it go. Doesn't mean it was all bullshit. It's not all bullshit, but mostly, right? And a lot of the narratives surrounding it were bullshit. And I spent too much time giving a fuck about Donald Trump. I know he's a con man, in my opinion, and I know he's an idiot. So, if you love him, I'm sorry, but that's my opinion on it. And I still thought that from time to time, his TV show, The Apprentice, was amusing, but amusing in the sense that I'm stuck in a hotel room with two channels. And on one channel, it has some crazed prosperity gospel preacher screaming and yelling. On the other channel, it has The Apprentice. So I want to have some diversion, entertainment. I'll watch The Apprentice over the other thing. So, but it doesn't mean I'm a huge fan, okay? But I thought he was well in his lane doing that. Other journalists have said that, things like Trump killed Epstein or whatever. I belong to this, during COVID pandemic, I belonged to this conspiracy group on WhatsApp because I found it entertaining. Davos crowd people, Depop crowd people, all kinds of conspiracy theories. And I found it entertaining, and I would read it, a little bit of it, and then I'd push back, ironically and humorously and rudely. And they never kicked me out. And I think it's because they found it kind of entertaining, or they thought I was just being joking. He believes what we believe. He's just joking. Uh, I don't know why they didn't kick me out, but they didn't. And I got positive feedback from it, even though they're totally all in on certain publications that I find distasteful now that I used to look at. Zero Hedge, for example. But anyhow, so, I changed my opinion, and I don't feel ashamed that I believed something that I currently think is incorrect or wrong or misguided. It doesn't bother me at all, you know? And I can walk and chew gum in terms of appreciating religious and mythological and historic narratives that may or may not be true, may just be stories, but are useful stories and good stories nonetheless. And so I enjoy them, and I seek to understand them better in terms of, let's say, evidential lines of evidence, or historicism. How do historians come to their understanding of certain events in the past, including religious or mystical traditions and so on? What was their utility? What's their usefulness to our species of storytelling animal, and so on? So I love it. I think it's interesting. So I have a broader kind of appreciation for ideas and stories and stuff like that. So I have to be more tolerant of people and my friends who are deeply religious and spiritual. And just because I don't have that gene, quote unquote, I can appreciate how they feel and understand that it's very real to them. And the same way, I shouldn't be too dismissive and rude to people who love Donald Trump. I mean, look, everyone has had different experiences growing up, and we've learned different things, and from different things and experiences, we have different levels of education. We're just different. And so some people, maybe they believe that thing. Like, I'm so weird because I really think that almost all leaders on the planet today are freaking brainwashed creeps on a spectrum of dark tetrad, on a spectrum. So if we know now, after years of research and science, that there's a spectrum of autism, that it's not just one thing caused by a vaccine and so on, but there's a spectrum of dark psychology and of these traits in the dark tetrad. I've discussed that before. You can look it up. So I think they're all nuts. And I think they're nuts because once you understand overshoot and civilizational collapse and all of the science surrounding it from multiple domains of inquiry and so on, you can't not see it anymore. So if you read Meadows and understand systems, complex systems theory and stuff from reading various authors or papers or whatever, And you're aware of stocks and flows and all that, and the maximum power principle and the maximum power entropy principle, maximum entropy power principle, MEPP, then you can't unsee it. It's everywhere. It's so obvious, right? I want to do a piece sometime about just the whole life cycle of Egg McMuffin, because I used to have Egg McMuffin in Hong Kong when I was on the way to the office. Didn't have time to eat breakfast, run down, catch the ferry to Central. And I'd pop out and I would hit the gym. And then I would hit the McDonald's on the way to my office, which was at Lipo Center in Admiralty. And, it was just easy. I liked the coffee. I liked the potato. What is it called again? The potato thing, and I like the egg sausage McMuffin. So I'm looking at eggs, the bread, the meat, the potatoes, the coffee. So what's the whole life cycle, and also the whole supply chain, and how much energy is required to eat that meal that I paid? I can't remember how much I paid back in the day in Hong Kong for an egg sausage McMuffin meal, but it was dirt cheap. It was dirt cheap. And, when you think about how much water a cow drinks before it's slaughtered and butchered and sent to market with diesel powered trucks, refrigerated trucks, you're like, my God, that's a shitload of water that cow had to drink so I could have a glass of milk or a steak. Anyway, total life cycle assessment's a little bit different, and planned obsolescence, which isn't actually planned, it's just more profitable to make things a certain way that may not last as long as a Kirby vacuum cleaner used to last. My mom had a Kirby vacuum cleaner, and there were Kirby repair people. And that thing lasted up until she passed away. So a long time. She did replace it once, I remember. She upgraded. And it had all these attachments and whatever. But anyway, it doesn't behoove Samsung to make one phone that lasts for 40 years. There's a light bulb that's still burning for 100 and some odd years. It's like we could do things differently. We just don't want to because it's not as profitable. And we're all careerists. We're all dependent on money and this whole system that we are embedded in and live in. And it's a global system. And so none of us can get out of it. I'm not holier than thou. I'm not better than you because I think about these things. It's just once you get into it, you can't unsee it. It becomes fascinating. And there are so many elements to it, human psychology and energy and physics and all kinds of other things. So it's just so fascinating. So I just going to read from the note here because, I what I want to do is learn how to explain in a philosophical sense maximum power principle and maximum entropy power principle to a 13-year-old. And if I could do that, it would be great. And I have to learn how to do that. But it's not because I want to go around to 13-year-olds or to middle schoolers and teach them about the maximum power principle from a philosophical, almost Kantian or whatever point of view. I want to be able to tell a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old who stopped learning anything when they were 25 or 30 about the maximum power principle or Jevons paradox or things like that. Not an elevator pitch, just, hey, did you know about this? Well, let me explain it to you. And they can easily understand it. And maybe if you know the person you're talking to, you can make it more familiar or more accessible to them by personalizing it, using examples that relate to their interests or obsessions. So anyway, the maximum power principle, this principle often discussed in ecology and systems theory, going back to like everyone should read Meadows, for example, suggests that systems tend to evolve towards maximizing the rate of energy flow or power throughput. So in physics, you have to understand the difference between energy, that kind of work, and power. but that's for when I can explain it to a 13-year-old. In human terms, it can imply that individuals or groups might prioritize increasing their influence or control, even if it leads to unsustainable practices or harm to others. This drive for power, in quotes, because in that context it's a sociological thing, can manifest in various ways from resource accumulation to social dominance. So systems seek to maximize energy flow. It can lead to prioritizing power over sustainability. And we can talk about power in a psychological sense, also just in terms of how much power we use or want to have to control various things. So it's a very deep thing to think about. It can lead to prioritizing power over sustainability, applies to ecological and social systems. And I have to emphasize that, culture and ecological and sociological systems are complex as hell. And another thing that makes us all want to be in denial is we want to avoid complexity at all costs because it's complex. And it tends to, freak us out. It sounds so difficult, complex things. And there's no easy answers. You can't just go to somebody, some guru on the web and have them tell you that they know everything and say, oh, cool, he knows everything. So whatever he says. People talk about theories of everything all the time, but then there's no theory. Where are your peer-reviewed papers? Where's your peer-reviewed book with all the references in it and reviews and so on? There isn't. They lost their notes. Their dog ate their notes or something, but it's still up here. I still know better than everybody else. There's many examples of people like that, but I'm not going to mention names anymore because other people on the tubes do that to great effect. And again, it's like coattailing. I'm going to mention some famous people so you'll click on my video. You already know who these people are, and if you're into them, nothing I say is going to stop you from being a super fan. Okay, I do mention Musk and people like Weinstein brothers and so on, but I just mentioned Sam Harris. It doesn't mean I hate these people. I just think, we could use our time better learning things through different kinds of people that I share a lot who are curators of the best information out there that if you wanted to delve into, you would learn a lot really quickly. So Jevons paradox is another big one. So this is the economic observation that states that technological advancements that increase the efficiency of resource use can actually lead to increased overall consumption of that resource. Essentially, making something more efficient can lower its cost or increase its accessibility, which in turn drives up demand. So I often think about this in terms of ephemeralization of plastic Coke bottles. So a long time ago, I read an article about how the Coca-Cola bottling company is doing everything they can to use less aluminum and plastic when they're making their containers and so on. How do they do this? Well, there's a limit to that, but also it tends to tell us that their product is better, so we're going to consume more of it anyway. It's a bad example, but it's an example of how we think that building like a Cybertruck and using glue to glue the bumper on because it's efficient, and then the bumper falls off. It's like, again, it moves into planned obsolescence and things like that. But, the more energy we find, so Nate Hagens always says this, points this out. If we had all the fusion power we wanted, it would just increase our demand for more consumption because we had all the power we needed. And of course, nuclear energy isn't as good as oil, gas, and coal for making steel. It doesn't burn hot enough. It's just boiling water basically to turn a turbine to create electricity. That's another story. But anyway, um, we don't have anything as powerful and efficient as an energy source as oil and gas and coal. And our whole civilization, as we know it and live in it, depends on it. So what we do is we dig up more minerals and stuff, and we make more stuff because GDP has to grow, our economies have to grow, the stock market has to go up, we have to have more millionaires and all that kind of thing. More consumption. Degrowth is built in. It's going to happen anyway for a lot of reasons that, like maximum power principle can state. Um, there's no way around it. Entropy is entropy. So what are you going to do? So increased efficiency, it just increases resource consumption. It's a counterintuitive effect of technological advancement. More fuel efficient cars leading to more driving. So instead of trains and public transportation and ride share and so on, it just means we got a better battery. It lasts for 50 years. So everybody should have two cars, you know. And that leads to collapse, period. Forget about climate change. That's baked in. We're done and dusted on that one. It's just a matter of, how long is it going to be before it affects me personally or my son or your child or whatever. So entropy is extremely important to know and understand. So develop your 13-year-old explanation for entropy. Everyone has to know something about that. In thermodynamics, this is like heat, Entropy is a measure of disorder or randomness in a system. In a broader sense, it represents the natural tendency of things to move from an order to disorder or from a state of high energy. And again, when atoms are all moving around really fast, they get hotter, to low energy, that heat dissipates, heat death of the universe or whatever. This concept is often used metaphorically to describe the gradual decline of systems or the inevitable decay of information. So this is a simple definition anyone can find, but going into it in depth is not my business here. So it's a measure of disorder, a tendency of systems to move to disorder, applies to thermodynamics and information theory. So it's quite interesting. And you should be able to delve into that and be able to talk about it with anybody, any 50-year-old who's in denial about the state of things in the world, of reality, okay? Not faith, not belief systems, but reality. So the maximum entropy power principle, this is a combination of the maximum power principle and maximum entropy. It hypothesizes that systems will not only maximize power flow, but also do so in a way that increases entropy production. This means that systems will seek to dissipate energy as quickly and efficiently as possible, even if it leads to instability or resource depletion. And you can talk about this in terms of how plants grow, in terms of how ecosystems behave, food chains, predators, all kinds of stuff. So Schmachtenberger had some interesting ways of explaining this. There are a lot of different people who deal with it. So systems maximize power and entropy. Rapid energy dissipation can lead to instability. And what we're doing is kind of a lot of things at once having to do with entropy. But we're also depleting energy sources that could be used to create a sustainable culture or socioeconomic system, political system, in a world where cultures around the world cooperated and collaborated for posterity, in other words, for future generations and for their own happiness and well-being, rather than competing over resources that are diminishing rapidly and killing each other over it. So Europe's going to invest billions and billions of dollars in rearming. It's stupid. It's not what we should be doing. I don't care if you think Russia's coming to eat your granny every day of the week. This Russophobia and Sinophobia and whatever phobia has been around since the beginning of time, since before Russia existed, actually, because we fear the barbarian. And also, it helps us in rapacious economic competition to have an enemy, somebody to fight against, somewhere to go and steal shit from. So if Europe wants to rearm, it has to steal energy from somebody. Well, there's no colonialism and imperialism anymore. France doesn't have its colonies. Germany doesn't have its colonies. The Brits don't have their colonies anymore. You know, the US is the hegemon empire now. So where are you going to go steal the energy? Before the war started, the special military operation, we had plenty of energy coming from Russia. And so we could maintain our industrial base, and we had a pretty good life going on here in Europe. And now it's all shit. And people are going to buy oil and gas from the United States of America when the United States of America, if it were wise, would be leaving its oil in the ground so that it would have some in the future. But what they want to do is spend everybody else's oil as quickly as possible for their own insane consumer appetites and addictions, and leave the rest of the world just dying of, heat death. So it sounds kind of crazy, but that's basically what it is. And we're all sucked into this ridiculous way of thinking. So all these careerist politicians, it seems that war powers the evolving door between public and private, between corporate gigs and political gigs, or consulting gigs and corporate gigs and political gigs. And these people are all in a nice little club that you don't belong to, as George Carlin said. And they're having a great time. And we're just out here sucking it because we don't matter to them. Really, you don't. You are a resource to be exploited, an energy to be used. So we give you enough calories to pick the cotton. And, a dead slave isn't a good slave, useless, no utility there. So we have to keep you going. And also just on a financial basis, we have to keep creating debt just to keep the game going. And that's insanity too, but that's another story. So I won't go into that right now. So systems maximize power and entropy. Rapid energy dissipation can lead to instability. And we're unstable now. And people are starting to notice, but not noticing quickly enough. It just seems a little bit unstable. So the Dunning-Kruger effect, now we're getting into things like, why are we stupid? And why can't we see reality? Why are we in denial? There's lots of reasons for it. And, in future conversations, I'll mention some in depth. I'm going to do a different project soon. I won't tell you what it is till it's up and running. Then I'll ask you, the 5 or 6 of you that subscribe, if you want to come over, and maybe it'll be a better fit for everybody and I'll get more viewers, who knows. Anyway, the Dunning-Kruger effect, which most people have heard of, this is a cognitive bias where people with low ability at a task overestimate their ability, while those with high ability underestimate theirs. Usually the high ability people are just being humble because they know how complex their area of expertise is, and they know that they're not all that because they're constantly learning about their field, and they realize they're nowhere near as good as some other guy. So you're a pretty good marksman there, boy. And you're like, well, I'm not as good as he is, and so on. I'm pretty shit compared to that guy. But the other people, like our politicians, they all overestimate their ability. Trump is such a braggart, and so is Musk, and they're running the United States of America, along with their minions who are also Dunning-Krugerites. I mean, all of these people overestimate their ability. I'll tell you right now, I certainly don't. So sorry for that, if I'm not cool enough or think I'll just brighten this up a bit, huh? The clouds. It'd be better if I didn't have a window. The light wouldn't shift so much. But yeah, since I don't market myself as a know-it-all, you know, who's going to watch me? You know, what an idiot, fucking idiot. He doesn't even think he's smart. Ah. So basically, people who are incompetent often lack the self-awareness to recognize their incompetence. So narcissists like Trump, they're totally incompetent, but they're incapable of understanding that because of their narcissism and their dark tetrad characteristics. So there's a lot of information on Dunning-Kruger you can look at. Competent people underestimate their ability or lack of self-awareness, basically. So I'm always asking my viewers to learn how to critique yourself. You know, ask yourself why you think the way you think and why you believe what you believe, and say, is this right? It doesn't mean that, you know, you're suffering from the imposter syndrome or you're too hard on yourself. You know, you shouldn't be so hard on yourself. It just means that you have more self-awareness and you're more willing to have an open mind with regards to what you think you know. Epistemic humility. Ooh, aren't you smart? What a term. You know, people talk epistemic humility all the time. It sounds so smart. Some people, if they hear you say something like that, they'll just shut down right away. It's like, who does this asshole think he is? So this is groupthink is another one that's extremely important, and I'd imagine all the people in the EU government in Brussels or wherever it is, at the UN or in Congress, they all suffered a groupthink to a certain degree. It's not quite the same as like information bubbles on social media, but it's kind of similar. So, you know, tribalness, that kind of thing. This is a psychological phenomenon where a group of people prioritize harmony and conformity over critical thinking and rational decision making. It often leads to poor judgments and a failure to consider alternative perspectives. So if you're going to have any agency at all, any power at all, any ability to vote for the right kind of person or whatever, choose a leader or just make good decisions, you're going to have to push back on groupthink. Doesn't mean that your group isn't right, but, you know, be willing to question. So you don't want to suppress dissenting points of view and opinions. That's just not a good idea. And what you want to do is dissent over your own opinions from time to time when you get confused and say, maybe this isn't right. The bandwagon effect is huge. You know, we just, you know, oh, that video has 1,000 likes. I'm going to watch it, you know. And it's about some ridiculous, absurd thing that, you know, you shouldn't be wasting your time looking at, but you do. And then you wonder why you did. And, you know, obviously, you know, we use this in advertising and marketing all the time. Like, you know, 9 out of 10 dentists or, you know, bond drives for war and stuff. You know, once people start doing it, everybody does it. So this is the tendency for people to adopt beliefs or behaviors simply because many other people are doing so. It's driven by a desire to fit in as opposed to being left out. And one of my favorite scenes in American Psycho is when the guy's in the taxi with his girlfriend going to some restaurant. She's asking him, why are we going to that restaurant anyway? We could have gotten into the other one. And he goes, I just want to fit in. You know, Patrick Bateman's always getting pissed off when somebody has a better business card than he has. He's so competitive. And this is the thing, right? We're hyper competitive and hyper stimulated, and it's just so much all the time. Gotta win, you know. And it cracks me up. You know, that old trope back in the early 2016, I think it was. Charlie Sheen, winner. He's wasted as hell. But that was a hilarious meme for a while. So we adopt beliefs because other people believe that thing. And we're uncritical about why we're doing it. And it's all about social conformity and following the crowd and fitting in and all that kind of stuff. We're all vulnerable to it, even if we know it's true, you know? And the other one that is very important to me, and you see it everywhere, which is why I think all of our leaders are idiots, is motivated reasoning. So this is the tendency to produce information in a way that supports pre-existing beliefs or desires. People using motivated reasoning are more likely to accept information that confirms their views and reject information that contradicts them. This is kind of close to confirmation bias, which is next, but we're all motivated to think certain ways. We think we're rational, we think we're unbiased and smart. But, you know, I might be talking to somebody here on my channel for a while, and I bring up somebody like Stephen Fisher or somebody who criticizes capitalism or something, and I don't hear from them again. Maybe it's because at their new job, if their boss saw them talking to somebody like me about a book by Fisher called Capitalist Realism, they'd get fired, and they don't want to get fired. I don't blame them. So, you know, you stop talking to a guy because, you know, this isn't the kind of reasoning that you're motivated to have. You know, this is kind of going against the grain here. You know, but I think you can be critical of a system and still work within it. I certainly do, because you have to. You got to survive, right? It's not ideal, but you got to survive. I know the sausage egg McMuffin is killing the planet, but I've got to eat something. Anyway, so many contradictions, so much hypocrisy. My God. So this is, you know, you just want to support your existing beliefs, and you want to feel emotionally, you know, in harmony with the group or whatever. And, you know, you have to do that. So confirmation bias, also a topic that's been written about everywhere. This is a big one. And people often, you know, with confirmation bias, they say, you're suffering from confirmation bias. The other person says, I know you are, but what am I? You know, it's like, no, you're straw manning me. No, I'm not. You're straw manning me. You know, whatever. So this is the tendency to seek out and interpret information that confirms pre-existing beliefs while ignoring or discounting information that contradicts them. It's a key factor in information reinforcement and misinformation. So you want to reinforce information in marketing, advertising, or whatever. You encourage confirmation bias. You want to confirm this bias over and over again. And you do it with the misinformation as well. So you're seeking confirming evidence. You want to find a story or data or lines of evidence that reinforce your biases, your prior beliefs, without updating your priors in the Bayesian kind of way. And you'll ignore contradictory evidence. And all of this reinforces existing beliefs. And for some of us, giving up our existing beliefs is unthinkable, untenable. Damn it. I know who I am. I have my identity. I know what's going on, and nobody's going to push me off that. I've had a lot of friends tell me that. And it's okay. I mean, whatever. You know, you believe what your granny taught you. Cool. I mean, you know, if you're comfortable with that, and it works for you, that's great. It's like some people who are functional alcoholics. They know it's killing them, but they can function drinking and smoking every day. So whatever, you know, this is what I do. And that's a little bit off that subject. But the other big one is cognitive dissonance that everybody hears about. That's another one where it's like, this is very uncomfortable, and books have been written about it. And I think I have a couple books on this topic on my website book page. But anyway, this is the mental discomfort experienced when holding two or more conflicting beliefs, ideas, or values. People are motivated to reduce this discomfort by changing their beliefs or behaviors. Mental discomfort from conflicting beliefs, motivation to reduce discomfort, and changing beliefs or behaviors. So again, it's like the drinking and smoking thing. You know it's bad for you, but to think about it too much feels more uncomfortable than just denying that it's bad for you. This cognitive dissonance is everywhere, and it has to do with all kinds of denial and avoiding things. Avoidance, I don't want to look at that. I'm not interested in global heating. Somebody's going to fix it. We'll have carbon capture soon. An alien race is going to come and save us because we're cute, or the robots are going to treat us nice in the future, or whatever it is. So the last one is denial in psychology, which is a big, huge subject that everybody should look into from a psychological point of view, but also from a philosophical point of view. It's quite interesting. And like I said yesterday, there is a difference between normal skepticism and as we, think about it in a more mundane sense, and a rigorous discussion of skepticism, philosophical skepticism. And denial is a big thing in psychology and cognitive behavioral psychology, all kinds of different areas there. But in psychology, denial is a defense mechanism where a person refuses to acknowledge reality or facts that are painful or threatening. It's a way to protect oneself from emotional distress. And, denial can come in many forms. You might be suffering from abuse, but you can't acknowledge it because it's you have no way out. What's the alternative? Or there's all kinds of things to there, but it's basically painful truths, and you just don't want to face reality. And this denial is going to, when I was younger, that was a big thing. We'd say, "You're in denial, man." But it's a very deep subject, and it's very powerful in terms of how we're ignoring the elephant in the room, So the elephant's in the room, and the elephant is the socioeconomic and political system in which we are embedded and that we believe wholeheartedly in. And this is the thing that's going to collapse civilization. Nothing else. I mean, all the other things are just things we do and symptoms and so on. So the preconditions for Trump existed long ago, hundreds of years ago. And blaming Trump as if that's going to solve anything is not going to solve anything. He's not the problem or the core causes of the problem. He's just a symptom of it. He's just another asshole with authoritarian dark triad characteristics that's come to the fore because we all want to, be super fans of famous, powerful people. And also because we're ignorant. And most of us are, and I am too, most of us are stubbornly ignorant and willfully ignorant. We just don't want to know what we don't want to know. We're in denial. We don't want to face reality. I think reality is fascinating and interesting and beautiful. I think we can learn a lot about ourselves and each other by looking at reality straight in the face. And I don't think reality is killing us. I think the refusal to face reality is what's going to collapse civilization. So with that, have a nice week. Take good care. Bulliam T. out.